you about the comments you had on the MTA the other day. You said you've ridden the subway and you were scared. You famously don't ride the subway. So can you tell us, one, when was the last time you rode the subway? And then two, with subways reopening, they closed down a year ago, in large part because of the homelessness issue. But in my reporting, I haven't seen this situation underground improve very much over the last year, whether it's from affordable housing, mental health, addiction treatment. You've worked on this issue for decades, and people are raising questions as to what you have to show for it. So what is your plan going forward to help this crisis? And back to the subway question, when was the last time you rode?
First, let's separate the issues. You have not seen an improvement in the subway system in terms of the number of homeless and cleanliness over the past few months?
I don't think you're noticing any reduction in the amount of people who are relying on the system for shelter regardless of the shutdown.
You have not noticed a reduction in the number of homeless people?
I ride every day. I'm out there.
Well, then you have a different opinion than your editorial board of your newspaper?
I don't work with my editorial board. You know, I work independently.
So are they wrong?
It's entirely possible.
Okay. Are most New Yorkers wrong who say in surveys they've seen a reduction in the number of homeless and they believe it's cleaner?
Are you saying that I'm saying that it's still a problem.
That's not what you said.
I'm saying that it's still a problem.
I don't want to give you a tough time. You want to say something different, you can say something
Okay,
different.
then let's say this. It's still a problem and it's still a
All
crisis.
right, let's start over again. There has been a reduction in the number of homeless in subways. The subways are cleaner than ever before. Okay, so now, new point. Homeless in the subways is still a problem. Yes, I agree. Better than before, better than in recent history, but still a problem. Yes, I agree. And the fear is now, when you go to 24 hours, the time when the subway was stopped was an opportunity for interventions where NYPD and social workers reached out to the homeless and brought them from the subways to shelters and to social services.
NYPD stopped doing that outreach amid the budget cuts last summer.
Well, it was still getting better. So if the NYPD wasn't doing it, then the MTA was doing it on its own. But my position is the subway system is not a homeless shelter. And I reject this whole notion of people who say we should let the homeless live on the subways and we should let them live in subway stations and we should let them sleep in benches. That's our default homeless system. I started in my 20s building homeless family shelters. I spent 8 years in the federal government working on homeless programs. I started the Continuum of Care program, which still exists at HUD, through Republican administrations. Won the Harvard Kennedy School Award for innovations in government with the Continuum of Care. We know how to do this. This is not where we have to reinvent the wheel. People should not sleep in the subways. People should be in a safe shelter environment. People need incentives to leave the subway and support to leave the subway. That intervention, that assistance has to be provided. If you do nothing, they will stay in the subways.
So what's the plan?
If the shelters are dangerous, then they're saying, I'd rather take my chances on a subway than go to the shelter. Then you have to improve the shelter system. But it's not that we don't know what to do. It hasn't been done, but we know what to do, right?
Why hasn't it been done? You're the governor. You've been governor for 10 years.
Yeah, the state has the programs. We have the funding. There has been progress in certain cities where the situation has gotten better. And the situation has gotten better in New York City and in the subway system. New Yorkers say that in surveys. I believe your editorial board said it. Most New Yorkers say it. It's cleaner and there have been less homeless. And that's a great success story. My point is, now that you're going to 24-hour service, don't lose that progress. It was not perfect. You're right. But it was better. And it showed that you can do it. We've gotten to a place. I'm a little bit older than you, just a couple of years. Where did we get to this point where the homeless are supposed to be sleeping on subways? It never happened. Never happened. We were talking about the subways in the quote-unquote old days. You rode the subways in the 70s. They were dangerous. There were chain snatchers. There were muggings. You had to be savvy. You were on the subway 10 o'clock at night. You know, you were on your own. You found that car where the police officer was in the car, and you sat in that car with that police officer, and you kept staring at that police officer. But you didn't have homeless in the subways the way you do now. When did this become okay? And when did we, the collective, decide that this was okay? It just happened over time. People sort of gave up. This is how we treat people? They sleep in a subway station and we say, okay, that's okay? No, I don't accept it. I don't accept it. Well, what do? Run safe shelters. Run safe shelters. What do the people say to you when you go up to them in the subway system? What do they say to me? What do they say to the outreach worker? I don't want to go to a shelter. Shelters are dangerous. I'd rather sleep here on a bench. It's safer than the shelter system. That's what they say. You hear it all the time. Run a safe shelter system. I did it in the federal government. Visited every state in the United States and reviewed their shelter system. It is entirely doable. It has to be done, but it's entirely doable. And now in this snapshot on time where we just showed progress, we can't go back. What the MTA is saying is, we need the NYPD in the subways. I quoted a former police commissioner, the subways are the canary in the coal mine for crime. It starts in the subways first. It has. It did. It's now on the streets. We need the NYPD. We need the same intervention. You're not going to stop the trains, so you don't have that interval. But I argue you can do it without the interval. You just have to be willing to do it.
And when was the last time you rode the system?
I, as governor, don't really ride the system as a commuter. Subway system doesn't really go to Albany. When a politician now does it, it's really a photo op, right? Because you guys all come with me and we stand in the car, and it's this publicity, public relations event. Yeah, it is, because when I'm on the subway, I don't just sit there and read the newspaper. I'm talking to people, etc. I don't think you've had a governor who has spent more time in the subways than I have. I'm there when you're not there. I'm there 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, making sure the L train tunnel is built, making sure the train rehab plants are in operation, working with the drain clearing crews to make sure that's happening. That's when I'm in the subway system, when I'm making sure the MTA is doing its job. You can do the photo ops with someone else.
Governor,